to ask a few questions from Mr. Shaw because you might be wondering where the money is coming from. Perhaps, Mr. Shaw, you can shed light on how we donate to SM Foundation as a group.
As a group, we require all our subsidiary to donate certain percentages of their annual net income to the common fund that will support the activities of SM Foundation. On top of that, we do have some partnership with certain of our suppliers, with certain of our tenants, and in fact, some of the investment bankers. No? And this is an invitation to you people out here that we accept such kind of donation for the flood victims also.
I'd also like to give the floor now to each of the business heads who are here, and they're actually prepared to talk about three things. No, one is their disaster prevention program, so that you're more or less aware of how they manage their risks as far as calamities are concerned. Second is their disaster response efforts. You know, if they're doing anything over and above what SM Foundation is doing. And third is their business continuity plans, because I've also gotten questions about if, you know, whether or not there were stores or malls that were affected by the recent flood. So I'll give the floor now to each of the business heads to discuss these three things.
Two of our stores actually went underwater. This would be Del Monte Corner Araneta, that's a Seymour, and also our Santa Mesa branch. You'd be glad to know that SM Seymour in Del Monte Araneta reopened about an hour ago, and we're very pleased to be back in service to the community in that part of Quezon City. Our store there is at 2 floors. The first floor, where the selling area is, was completely underwater. We only had 3 feet of airspace left, and we lost about 25 million pesos worth of inventory. But because our people were well prepared, equipment, point of sale, records and documents, they were already safeguarded. Fortunately, no loss of lives because they were also well prepared, and we had engagements with the barangay and disaster group of Quezon City, so that when this thing happened, they were safely evacuated. Our people were very heroic, to say the least, in terms of making sure that these things were safeguarded. At the same time, when the waters receded, they exerted extra special effort to make sure that the store would be ready in a span of 1, 2, 3, about 4 or 5 days after all this had happened. You can go to the store. It smells good and clean. The stocks on the shelves are fresh. Our suppliers were also very efficient and cooperative, and they provided us with enough stocks aside from supplementary stocks from our other stores which did not go under. The Santa Mesa branch is another story, however. We're still trying to clean up the entire basement of the mall where our supermarket is located. I have some pictures here, but unfortunately, it's not, it can't be shown on the screen, but it would take some time for us to be able to repair this. The repair would be more substantial, but this would only be in terms of the physical aspect. Again, in terms of our valuable equipment, in terms of our records, in terms of the cash, these have all been safeguarded. Our people are safe, and they've also exerted efforts to make sure that we could get back, hopefully, before September is over, assuming everything goes well. All over the metro, which was affected by heavy rains and the flooding, fortunately, our Marikina store, which is located in the riverbanks, did not go under this time. The waters were not that high enough, but we were also prepared for that. Our stores in Uptown Rizal, Angono, Taytay, and Morong, which are Seymour stores, these were all sandbagged beforehand, which helped prevented the flood waters from coming in from outside the street. So, in general, we're back in business except for our Santa Mesa store. This again is due to how our people had been practicing beforehand in anticipation of the rainy weather. And you could say that, okay, misfortunes happen, but we were well prepared for this. Thank you very much.
Just
And
to, Sir,
on top of what is the internal happening, what have you done to the communities that is affected by your store?
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. For our Uptown Rizal stores, for example, even before we liaised with SM Foundation, the local government units actually went to our stores already asking for assistance, which we did give. And directly, our stores were authorized to donate calamity packs, which consist of essentially food items to the surrounding communities. As Ms. Connie mentioned earlier, most of the calamity packs which SM Foundation is distributing right now have been packed in our stores. In fact, in the stores which were semi-flooded, they were still working just to make sure that these items would get out and be distributed.
yeah, actually, I was gonna ask. I mean, make a comment because if you're wondering how we're able to distribute 40,000 relief goods in 4 days, that's because of the efficiency of the distribution center of the retail business. They have a distribution warehouse in Sukat that can do these things, and in addition to that, some of the organizations that are also sending relief items, they also get it from SM. Connie, would you like to share what's inside the relief bag?
These are basically we have the essential items that are needed by the flood victims: water, bread, canned goods like sardines, noodles. Sometimes, if lucky, we put in coffee. But more often, those are the things, those are the stuff that are inside the bags.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Jojo Mendiola, and I'm in charge of the SM department stores. Two of our stores, namely Marilao and Santa Mesa, were not able to open in August 7 because of accessibility issues as well as manpower. Now, in August 7, we closed some of the stores at 3 o'clock, some of the stores at 7, and some of the stores at 9 o'clock. Essentially, when we were talking about closing the store, the issue really was it's not really profits that we're here for. We are here to service the community because we actually have some customers in the store buying some replenishment items. In August 8, we were back to normal, and in August 10, all of our stores were able to open. Now, as a matter of discipline, actually our employees try to come to work during these times of calamity because they know that we really try to open the store to serve our customers. But of course, we do not let them go like in August 7 at the height of the storm because of safety issues. That's why we decided early we selected some stores such as Marikina and all of the flood areas to close earlier at 3 o'clock and all the rest at 7 and 9 o'clock. We're back to normal, and I guess it's business as usual for the department store.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jojo and Joey have actually stated most of the things that we've been doing, but let me just clarify some things. No, one is that we were getting actually queries during the calamity whether we penalize tenants that will not open during those times. I would like to again mention this, that we don't penalize tenants that are not able to open because of calamities like what we had last week. In fact, during August 6 to 9, we had about 7,207 tenants that were not able to open because of problems like accessibility, their employees cannot go in. Now, as Jojo has mentioned, we really would like the malls to be open even if we are in disaster like situation, not really more for like the business, but to be more of service to the community. Again, like what happened during the calamity last week, we allowed cars to be parked inside our shopping centers overnight without charging them parking fees. This is basically to help, again, nearby communities that are flooded. During that incident, we had about 1,500 cars parked in several of our shopping centers just to make sure that they're safe. No? We also allow our malls, especially in critical areas, to become like evacuation centers or distribution centers so we could help distribute relief goods to the nearby areas that are severely affected by these calamities. Now, in SM Prime, we actually have like 3 stages of calamity preparedness or disaster preparedness and business continuity programs that will address from the very start all the way up to post. Now, from the outset, let me just state that all our developments, the shopping centers, are insured against all risks, including acts of God like typhoon, earthquake, and we also insure our business in what we call business interruption coverage. So even like what Joey had mentioned, Santa Mesa is now closed in terms of the basement because of the flooding. And it will take us, I think, about 45 days to get that back into business. But the ground and the second floor will be open. But even with the non-opening for 45 days, we will be able to actually claim for business interruption. And apart from this, as part of our business continuity program, because Center Point has been affected now twice in 2 years, Ondoy and this time, we analyzed and studied, and we think that it could happen again because the water is actually coming from Ramon Magsaysay and the creek. Because in the basement, if you're familiar with SM Center Point, there's a ramp going down, and there's a few parking areas used for delivery, and that's where the waters are coming in to the mall. Now, our design group is now looking into sealing that off, meaning it will be like a pail where water, even if the streets are flooded, it will not go into the basement anymore because we will seal that. However, there will be no access now from the basement. So people have to go to the ground floor, and if they want to go to the basement, then they have to just take the escalator going down. So these are part of the things that we actively do. Apart from ensuring that the malls are strategically located, the engineering group of SM Prime, we actually carefully study the location and of each and every mall, and we try to make sure that the design and the structure are compliant, no? And that it will help the community that surrounds the shopping center. A case in point is Masinag, because that area is usually flooded even not during typhoons. No? So what we have done there was that we built a we call it rain catchment facility that can actually store about 17 million liters of water. And we spend about, I think, about 25 to 30 million pesos to build this. But like the last typhoon, that area is not really flooded. And when we look at the catchment facility, it was just a little bit over half. Okay, so after the typhoon, we just had to release it slowly, and therefore creating that environment wherein the communities do not experience flooding. Okay, I think the other one would be Marikina, where the mall is like built on stilt, so that when water comes in, it will flow to the river because it's not being blocked because it's built on stilts. So we are a very responsible developer that we look at the environment in terms of our development to make sure that minimal impact is actually produced out of the development. Let me also state that we have actually emergency response team and manuals for all our shopping centers to help our people prepare, no, and understand, like during calamities, what they need to do, what numbers to call, and what type of security measures to put in place. We conduct like annual earthquake, fire drills. We have a group of people that are specially trained on emergency responses to make sure that we are able to cascade this to all our people in all our locations. We also have what we call a national emergency council, and this is headed by our president, Mr. Han Si. When like calamity strikes and there are several malls affected, there's a command center that is in the Max building that we have. That's our office in the Mall of Asia area, where all the major heads will have to be there, and those that cannot go in will have to be on standby to make sure that we are able to make the call in terms of what to do in like opening, closing of our shopping center. We had this in place some time ago, and we continue to have this because it's very effective in terms of responding to calamities. I guess that's about it.
Actually, in addition to calamities, the malls are also very prepared to address, other risks like acts of terrorism, because of the, these increasing probabilities of these things happening anywhere, not just at SM malls, but anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world.
We're actually also covered in terms of insurance for terrorism and sabotage.
Well, BDO has its own BDO Foundation, and it works closely also with SM Foundation on a number of programs. I guess the main objective of the foundation is really to carry out BDO's CSR objectives, and these are really our way of trying to give back to the communities that we serve. We try to develop communities to advocacy programs. We want to be able to help empowered, marginalized sectors of society, and also it's a way for BDO employees to serve their communities directly through volunteer work. I think, yeah. In terms of the objectives, I think, as I mentioned, these are the four main objectives of our CSR program. And if we go to specific areas that the foundation is working on, these are in the areas of shelter, sustainable livelihood, education, healthcare, environmental awareness, and disaster response. The involvement of BDO effectively comes in the form of either financing or funding for the foundation. It can be in the form of land that we contribute, let's say for conversion into a livelihood or a livelihood program, or for a resettlement of, let's say, displaced families from calamities. It could be in the form of medical equipment that, let's say, could be used for some health centers. And lastly, also, it's as I mentioned, it's also a way for employees of the bank to personally share their expertise, like in the accounting for farmers. They can help teach specific sectors. They can share their skills with specific sectors. So in a nutshell, that's more or less how BDO implements its CSR platform. And in terms of the bank's situation over the past week, we were fortunate that while a number of branches were affected, they are more or less they're just basically a handful that are still not operational, but most of them have been converted already. I mean, they're up and running already, And during those times when they were not operational, we made it a point that we have a business continuity program, so we make it a point that the clients of a branch that is closed because of inaccessibility is serviced by another branch, a nearby branch. So that allows continuing access to our customers, which is our primary focus. So we're still assessing also the impact of the calamity on our clients. We're doing a portfolio review right now, and but it's still at the early stage. We're not in a position yet to say which specific industries or client segments of the bank have been affected in a major way. But we're developing that assessment already.
Cora, I think si Ian and Miguel are bored already with the. It looks like they want to ask questions already about the numbers.
No, I think we'll just have two more. We'll have. I'll also give the floor to the property group, Ms. Rose Kwa and Dave, because it's also good for them to understand why is it that Mall of Asia is never flooded when Rojas Boulevard is flooded. No, so I think that speaks about the kind of engineering that SM does to prepare for calamity.